Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to Somos Mas, the official podcast of Somos Mas NM and your source for the latest news and notes on New Mexico United and the New Mexico Runners. My name, of course, is Seth Bidoff. Joining me this evening, that is not Earl Nieto to my left. That is, of course, the one, the only Harry Austin, co-host of SATX Soccer, co-host of Texas Ring of Fire, San Antonio fan. Harry, how are you? It's been a while since we've had you on the show. You and I were texting a little bit over the weekend. San Antonio had a bit of an interesting match. So first, let's get right into it. How are you? How have you been? San Antonio's looking like they might be on the verge of a deep playoff run, in my opinion, anyway.
We'll see on the deep playoff run, but I'm 2-2 in my fantasy football league, unlike Earl, who's 0-4. So that's probably why I got the call. Earl, maybe get a win and then you can come back. But hope all is well with Earl and Jacob, Team Jacob in the house. So we got to have that once a month, once a quarter, along those lines until Jacob returns and for that here. But it's the season isn't like last year's where everything was going great for San Antonio FC. It's been a struggle, which I think you kind of expect for a defending champion for that here. There's a reason why you don't repeat very often. So.
Yeah, we talked early in the season, and San Antonio was my favorite coming in. Obviously, you've won one of the last five. Really interesting match over the weekend against Oakland. Talk to me a little bit about this, because like I said, you and I were texting on Saturday. I, of course, was out in the lab watching New Mexico United. And, obviously we're doing scoreboard watching at this point in the season. Everyone's kind of looking to see what's going on. We were hoping for an Oakland Roots loss to help our cause heading into the playoff run. But Oakland jumped out to a pretty quick lead, two goals under 10 minutes. And, it looked to be about 90 seconds in between the goals from what I saw. I mean, and the text that you sent me said that San Antonio just didn't get off the plane, but you guys made a turnaround there and managed to pull out a draw. So talk to me a little bit about what happened early on and then the change that San Antonio made there to pull out the point.
So the first goal from Oakland was a good goal. Johnny Rodriguez had, scored the goal. If you probably look at it, there was probably a little bit of defensive lapse by San Antonio FC. But give full credit to Johnny Rodriguez and the Oakland Roots on getting on the board early, which is what you need to do with San Antonio. They do not play historically well from behind. And the only reason why it was 90 seconds is because of the celebration, because San Antonio kicked it from the mid-cycle, kicked it back, and Rita Zahir didn't release the ball soon enough. It got blocked, and the second goal from the Roots was basically off of that error where, how many times have you seen a team just kick it back and then, for San Antonio, kick it back over the top? This time they held on and the Roots defense, blocked it and got an easy score. And, 10 minutes in, basically they got the 2-0 lead. Stayed that way till half. San Antonio kind of settled into the game for that here. And then in the, what was it? Why isn't this moving here? In the, right after halftime, 55th minute, Santiago Patino got a good header, to bring it back into one. And then at 90+5, a kick from our goalkeeper, got headed to Dylan, who headed it to Tani, and they were able to get a last-second draw, you could kind of say. And as a San Antonio fan, there was calls for a PK right at the end with the tackle from behind, but on Jorge Hernandez. But I think upon further review, most of us are understand, hey, it wasn't the defender got ball. Good tackle, and unfortunately, Jordan Farr got a red card because right after that the referee blew the whistle, and by the time he turned around, Farr was in his face, so he got a red card. So we'll see if that stands, because to me, he blew the whistle, game was over. Farr has the opportunity to run onto the pitch, so it can't be because of that. Now, did Jordan Farr say something maybe he shouldn't have said? That's where we'll see. But even for dissent, a lot of times it's a yellow card, unless you say one of the no words. But we'll see. But for San Antonio FC going into Oakland, it's always a close match with Oakland, just with the type of matches that they play. It's a physical match, and of course with San Antonio, they typically play a little bit physical and on that line. So. But I thought it was a good match. The first half was good, I think, for San Antonio FC. They probably feel like they gave the match away for that here, with the 2 errors in the first half that they control for that here. But you got to give all credit to Oakland. They forced the issue, and how many times has San Antonio done that, where they force the issue on the other team and create the mistakes, and that's what good teams do. So Oakland's facing for the playoffs, and San Antonio's trying to hang in there for the first seed in the West. But I think realistically, if you look at the schedule, Sacramento has to be the favorite to be able to lock in that number 1 seed from the West.
Yeah, Sacramento's really come on here, especially in the second half of the season. So I'd be hard pressed to bet against them picking up that 1 seed. But I mean, even with that roster that they have, I mean, you guys have Orange County and Indy 11, both of which I think are highly winnable games for San Antonio. And then Rat Republic has RGV and Miami. So there's no debate about it. That's the easier of the 2 schedules. But I mean, I wouldn't pass Sacramento to slip. I mean, they have. No. I mean, obviously they slipped against us, about 2 months ago, and I think they slipped up a little bit against Switchbacks here a couple weeks ago. But
yeah,
I mean, I was curious about that Jordan Farr card because obviously we didn't see it. We didn't see it live, at least not from my view. Initially, it said violent conduct, but it looks like they've gone back and amended that on the USL Championship website to say foul and abusive language. So
what happened is another SAFC player touched the referee, and I think the referee initially thought it was Farr, but Farr didn't touch him, and that's why I said he had to have said something. But from everything I know about Jordan Farr, he's not one that we'll say the extremely bad words, and I'm not saying that he won't or he can't, but generally his personality is not that way. Now, do I think he said something to the referee? Yes. Question is, was it red card worthy? That's where we'll have to come through probably tomorrow on the news and notes that they'll typically do on Wednesdays to see if that red card stands. Even if it doesn't really impact San Antonio because they're going with Marsman to get his 5 games in, which is a whole separate discussion for that I don't really want to get into because I don't have an answer on why we're doing that. But and you guys are kind of doing something similar where you guys brought in a late season goalkeeper as well. I think your starter was pretty good. Tambakis, right?
Well, yeah, Alex has a broken hand though.
Oh, is it? Okay, that was injury.
Yeah, he has.
Ours isn't injury related. Yeah. Ours is that, hey, there was an MLS quality goalkeeper that's sitting there. Hey, we can bring him in, even though we have top 5, top 6, 7 goalkeeper, depending on where you put Jordan Farr. So it's an interesting decision.
Yeah, I've got Farr in my top 5. I really think he's one of the top keepers in the league. And it's not even close. I mean, you go look at you throw in that top 5, and I don't think there's anyone else in the West that remotely come close to them. I mean, you could argue, I mean, Vitiello has been okay, but I mean, we put 3 past him. But yeah, really, you're looking at Pittsburgh, Tampa, Lou City. You're looking at you guys, big difference between the top 4, But.
Yeah. But it's a decision they made, and Marsman's a quality goalkeeper, so it's an interesting decision. We'll see how it works out because let's be honest, for San Antonio, it's about the playoff run. At this point, whether they finish first or second, which is most likely where they'll finish, unless San Diego goes on a run, because they can get 59 points. We're at 55, so they'd have to pretty much go max with their 3 remaining matches. But it'll be interesting to kind of see how it is. But for New Mexico, you were there. It was a win that probably felt great, but yet you look at the being down to 9 men, and you got to kind of question how much does that win and those 2 red cards impact going forward?
Yeah, some really good questions, and I really can't wait to dive into those real quick. Andres Trujillo over in the chat, owner and president of the New Mexico Runners. Andres, how you doing this evening? Glad you're here, buddy. Josh Gonzalez, what did I say last week? We fight for 90 at home. We held off Lou City at 2-0 with 9 men. That game felt good. And absolutely. You look at that game, and Josh, you were here in the show last week. Harry, you were hanging out watching. And neither Earl or I felt good about this game.
Neither did
obviously, I. You didn't either. I mean, Lou City is one of those teams. They're a perennial favorite coming out of the East. And, looking at this, the only saving grace coming in is that Lou City hasn't been great on the road this season. Now, we haven't necessarily been great at the lab, but you watch that game on Saturday, and the first 10 minutes were kind of, ho-hum. No one really did a whole lot of anything. No one really kind of took the match by the scruff of the neck and said, "Hey, we're gonna run away with this." And then you go back and you look at it, and you get the early goal from Harry Swartz off of really kind of a fluky bounce. It wasn't really a pass from Schneider Borgelin. Like, he kind of taps it over and somehow it gets to Harry, and it does take a deflection on its way into the goal. But I mean, I was up in the press box. We're going to take goals however we can get them at this point. We've had such a problem finishing this year, outside of a stretch of 5 to 7 matches after Coach Quill first came in, where we were scoring in bunches. But you look at the play of our forwards all season long, and it just hasn't been there. It doesn't matter who we've stuck up front, other than Daniel Bruce or Armando Moreno, and the play hasn't been there. You bring in Schneider Borgelin, a guy who played MLS Next Pro last season for Inter Miami 2, and he hasn't done a whole lot. And there was a quote that Coach Quill gave in the post game saying that this is the physical league, that he's having to learn how to mature and play in this type of league. Now, we don't talk a lot about MLS Next Pro. And we talked about all the 2 teams leaving and talking about how that's going to affect development of players. Now, I don't know how much Next Pro you watch, but is there really that big of a difference where a guy like Schneider Borgelin, who scored, I think it was like 22 goals for Miami 2, and Next Pro has to come in and adjust to the level of USL Championship?
I think there is.
You think
number one, it's a D3 league for that here. But 2, how many times have we seen with the MLS 2 teams here when they were in USL Championship that their goal is still development. It's not about winning. And we saw that last year. We had a forward that was loaned in from Orlando City, tops, very good scoring wise, and struggled, here in San Antonio. And some of that you got to kind of think maybe it's the system, but it's a different level between D2 and D3, and especially MLS Next Pro. And to be fair to them, this is year 2, and they're still growing along those lines here. But to me, I do think it's, because MLS Next Pro, you're probably looking 17, 18, 19, 22, 23-ish.
Yeah.
Where, you look at USL, you're probably looking 26, 27, 28 average, for the average age. And so to me, there is that physicality, and let's be honest with you, it's a different structure fan wise, especially in New Mexico, where you guys have the great fan support. And but to me, I do think there is a difference, and that's why I like on Texas Ring of Fire, I've criticized Austin FC a little bit, just because if you've got a fringe MLS player that's, that can get some minutes, but's really not getting a lot of minutes, loan out those young kids to a USL Championship team as opposed to an MLS Next Pro, because that's the level that they need in order to be able to step up. Let's look at Sam Adeniran, spent last year in San Antonio, won the title, came back to San Antonio at the start of the season, got the minutes he needed, and has helped St. Louis FC win the West in their expansion year in MLS. So I think it does matter. I think it takes time, but it also depends on the system. And for Borgelin, like I said, it's I've watched some of the games. I don't think it's all on him, like, because we've talked about the New Mexico midfield, having problems connecting up to the forwards in a good position. So I think it's just a combination. But yeah, to me, there is a difference.
Yeah, I would love to be able to watch more of MLS Next Pro. Unfortunately, it's just not available readily, I should say. It's not readily available to watch anywhere. Because there are guys who are talented that played in USL Championship, 2 years ago before the exodus of the two teams, that I would have loved to have seen. You look at Red Bulls too, who were quite competitive for a number of years in USL Championship, and I honestly don't know how they're doing in Next Pro, but
not well.
Not well. Okay.
Yeah, not well.
I mean, it would be interesting to see. Jane has a point here, and I think this is a great analogy. I called it a fumble to Harry. That makes a lot of sense. It really does. But you're absolutely right, Harry. And it's something we've talked about all season long. United's midfield has lacked creativity. They've lacked chance creation. Obviously we're missing Christian Nava, who will not be back this season. I posed the question the other night. I said, if there's a chance from the last game that we're still in this, do we see Nava? No, absolutely not. Nava will not be back. Yeah, you wouldn't.
Why would you risk
it? Oh yeah, no, I don't think you would, but it's just one of those questions, because fans are going to ask, what if, what if we put Nava in there? What if you did this? I asked about Chris Wehan, a guy who's been missing for a large portion of the season with a broken kneecap, and every week that we've been told for weeks that he's close. Well, honestly, at this point, I don't think he's coming back this year. I don't think you risk him at this point, because he hasn't played at all. He's not going to have any sort of match fitness. And even if you throw him in there here in the last 2 weeks, you're not going to get a full Chris Wehan experience. You're not going to get the full benefit of everything he can do. And that's why you look at guys like Nicky Hernandez and Sergio Rivas and what they've done through stretches of this season. And we've talked, when Sergio's driving at opponents, he's so good. He makes defenders do bad things. And you saw that again Saturday night. You saw, the three through our mid just pushing forward and forcing Lou City into positions that they just couldn't defend. And, Nicky's been phenomenal, and we'll get to Nicky more here in just a minute. But, that service has not been there all season. And even Saturday, watching Armando Moreno in some of his best games, you still see him getting into positions. And it happened time and time again. I'll say, where he's got no help around him.
Right.
And there's only so much that Armando can do. When he's got 2 to 3 defenders closing in on him, he needs to have an outlet for that ball. And we don't have the creative people we haven't had the creativity most of the time to get that ball to him. We don't have, yes, we have Schneider's hold-up play is pretty good, but he hasn't really turned into anything for us. Greg Hurst has been, who I thought was going to be a good signing for us in the offseason, hasn't really developed into anything for us. Is it system potentially? You saw the pace of Daniel Bruce working wonders for us up top. But Brucey also has that ability to drift out wide and be creative from out there, where, you saw Borges on Saturday drift out wide and he kind of, got lost.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's system, there's creativity, there's service. There's a lot of different things that have gone into why our forwards have not done well this season. But, Saturday night, Schneider Borgelin does the unthinkable, a forward picking up 2 yellows. Like, you and I were talking about this a little while ago before we came on air. And we saw Devin pick up a yellow here and there when he was playing, but I can't think of a time that I've seen a forward pick up 2 yellows in a match for two just silly fouls that shouldn't have been committed. There's no reason for him to do it.
Well, the first one says was for dissent or argument in the 15th minute, and then the 53rd minute was the foul, which for a second yellow, I thought maybe was kind of harsh, but you and I kind of talked about where he did get the studs up or, the boot up hot, on the shin area, to where you give the referee the opportunity to make that decision.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't see, to be honest with you, I didn't see the 15th pay attention or, catch the 15-minute one there, but
yeah, there was a foul.
You got to be
right
smarter.
Near midfield.
Yeah. But to me, like I said here, if you're on that, if you're already on a yellow card, and especially where he kind of went in, on the foul for the second card, you could tell he was kind of 50-50 on going in, and that's what put him in the position. And unfortunately, it was a bad position he got caught in. So, but he's a young kid, though.
He is. I think he's 22, 23. I'd have to double check that. But yeah, he's young. He still has
21.
21. Yeah. He still has some growing to do. He's got a lot of development left to do. And, I think that's one of those moments that he's going to think back on, like, okay, like, why am I making this challenge? Is this a smart challenge to make? And in that moment, it really wasn't. And you talked about, the loss of him going forward, at least for next week against Phoenix. But Borgelin's contribution has not been significant enough for me to say this is going to be a big loss for us against Rising. You've got Greg Hurst who can come in and play similar style. I think Borgelin's got a bit more pace. I think he's
speed. Yeah.
But
you need that against Phoenix. So you need that against Phoenix.
You do. And we talked about that earlier in the year. Phoenix does not do well against pace. They don't, especially that across that back four. And that's, how we exploited them earlier in the season. So, you do kind of miss out on that, but I think this is one of those opportunities where maybe you throw Daniel Bruce up top again. Daniel Bruce, Armando Moreno, you've got, gives you a bunch of pace. Now, I mean, obviously Bruce is not your prototypical forward, but he brought something, those first few matches after Quill was hired. And maybe that's a possibility there instead of seeing Hurst up there, to run that match. But to me, the bigger loss is that of Nicky Hernandez.
Yes.
Nicky came in Saturday
and
night.
for the reason why.
Yeah. And I know it's been questioned, and I've seen some discussion, and, Nicky subs in the 58th for Harry Swartz, picks up a foul picks up a yellow card for foul in the 70th, which, I mean, you can go either way on that.
He came from behind. He came from behind. For there, so you can't. He didn't really put much of an argue up for it either. So
no. I think if the ref lets that one go, just kind of cautions him there without giving him the yellow, I think you accomplish the same thing.
Correct.
But yeah, I mean it's a valid foul. You could give that card there, and then Nicky, with United already down to 10 men, Nicky picks up a goal, a fantastic goal, great ball forward from Sergio Rivas to spring him. And that's what you want to see when you're down. You sit back, you absorb some pressure and spring on the counter. And great goal by Nicky going across goal. And then you've got the celebration. Obviously this is pre-planned. If you go back and watch the replay, you see a staffer who's sitting there by the goal, pull the mask out and hand it to Nicky. And it is in the laws of the game. You cannot put on a mask during a celebration. It's in Law 12. If you've watched over the past few years, folks have gotten in trouble for taking off shirts or pulling up their shirt and showing like a political message and things like that. This all falls into that. You 100%. Can't put on a mask. And it was conveyed to us in the press conference on Saturday night that folks weren't aware of that being part of the laws of the game. It is an automatic caution. And you see the discussion after the fact. You see, there being some confusion, and the referee kind of indicated he didn't really want to do it, but he had to. He had to. It's in the laws of the game. and you can see him clearly indicating that there was, he was something with the face. Yeah. There was some question at first as to what actually happened or why the yellow was given, but that's exactly what it was.
Yeah. I knew when I saw it, I was like, you're getting a yellow card. I got caught up in the moment and I forgot that he had a yellow card 5 minutes earlier.
Mm-hmm.
And to me, that's where Nicky's got to be smarter. And I know you get caught up in the moment, and I think that's what Nicky's fourth goal, I think I heard the announcer say.
Yes.
With New Mexico United, so he's been a great addition. I know, as San Antonio fans were like, hey, can we re-sign Nicky? But, unfortunately he didn't, and he went to New Mexico. But you got to be smarter. And how many times have we seen the silly yellow cards for, taking off a shirt, for using other props, for, you can't do it. And to me, the fact that, the New Mexico United staff is saying, hey, they didn't know, that's not a good look. I hate to say it. It's not a good look, because that's common. That's common. Goal celebrations aren't, you can't take articles of clothing off. You can't put articles of clothing on. You can't use props. It gets carded in every league. I don't understand. I don't understand it. And like I said here, I know Nicky meant well, and I think you guys were celebrating, or was it? What were you celebrating?
That was Indigenous Peoples Night. It was actually really cool. Before the match, the national anthem was sung in Navajo.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I had never seen that before. My oldest son, is actually quarter Navajo, so I know about 10 words. And so I kind of wish he had been able to see it, and because his grandfather is full-blooded Navajo, and I think it would have been a really cool thing. So I intend to ask, the club if I can get like a copy of it so I can show them. But it was a really cool thing. But my understanding is that the math was actually from a wrestler.
Yeah.
A Mexican wrestler. So yeah, it was, obviously Nicky had his reason for doing it. He's celebrating something, but yeah, and it wasn't just staff. It was, Coach Quill, Kalen Wright, and Andrew and Andy Thomas, who also that they had no idea that was part of it. So not just staff saying that they didn't know. It was, Coach himself saying he wasn't aware of that. So, but yeah, like you said, like you see it in the NFL, they players pull out props. We saw, who was it? Who pulled out a Sharpie or pulled out and signed a football.
Randy Moss, Terrell
Randy
Owens,
Moss, yeah. One of those guys that someone pulled out a cell phone, and like those guys, you get the celebration penalties. So
the reason why is it delays the game, and it could be kind of used as a taunting. And I know, Nicky, that wasn't the point. It was more to celebrate his heritage and along those lines, and the messages that he was trying to do. But if you allow that there, then what's to prevent somebody else from having another prop that they use? And so it's unfortunate. To me, where I think you guys play Phoenix this upcoming week.
Yep, we have Phoenix this Saturday.
It's a huge impact for you guys not to have Nicky there. Borgelin, like I said here, I think he could be an impact, but to me, Nicky in the midfield is one, especially going against Phoenix, where they do have a great midfield. And they will push and press that, you guys lose some of the depth. And I know you guys have brought in players compared to the last time I was on, where I talked about for New Mexico, it was really the lack of depth. Mm-hmm. You're going to test your depth this week, for that here in a must win, right? I don't think there's anything short of 3 points is going to help you guys make the playoffs at this point. And even then, you're most likely on the outside.
Yeah, a draw really doesn't help unless we see losses from everybody else around us. But even then, like I haven't sat down and done all of the math, but yeah, it's basically win or go home.
Your max is at 46.
Mm-hmm.
The Roots are already at 42, and El Paso's at 43. So. And Monterey, and then of course RGV. I gotta check see if RGV is correct. 39, 39, 40, 41. So
They have
yeah,
max of
it's
48. Yeah.
so yeah, for for you guys, it's you guys have to win depending on what Oakland does. Just for the fact that Monterey, RGV, both also have it, and then I'd have to look at tiebreakers along those lines. But to me, it's a must win. And Phoenix is also trying to get home field advantage right now. I think they're in the fourth slot or third slot, fourth slot, because they lose the tiebreaker to San Diego for that here. But Orange County's right behind them, so and they have the tiebreaker over Orange County. But it's for that final home playoff spot or being able to get into the third. Phoenix is going to be wanting all 3 points as well, especially in a rivalry match. Because for those that don't know, if you're new to following this and just doing this, New Mexico and Phoenix is probably top 3 as far as rivalries in USL Championship. For that, as far as dislike between. It's from the organizations. I don't think either organizations like each other. I don't think the teams like each other, and I know both fan bases don't, because I interact with both fan bases, and you guys can't stand each other.
Without a doubt, and it goes back to year one, and then obviously the COVID year exacerbated things a bit, and so yeah, it's an interesting one. And we've talked about, to me, that's the biggest rivalry we have. Like El Paso is what it is. There's always going to be that hate there, but I mean, it's Phoenix and New Mexico. Like, yeah, he said the fan bases just hate each other. They just really do. And there's a few folks over on Rising Twitter that seem to allow New Mexico to live rent free in their heads. So, I try to take the very neutral approach here. But yeah, it's an interesting rivalry.
So you take the neutral, I take hey, let's egg it on, let's stir the pot.
There you go. Yeah, I don't blame you at all. But I think it's good as long as the fan bases don't take it too far. I think it's a good thing to have that in sport. Now obviously you've seen some things pop up on on social media here and there, and things about people leaving stickers and all this kind of stuff and whatever. Like, yeah, I think I think all that's all in good fun, but some people definitely take more exception to it than others.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think going back to Stickergate, I think Rising Minute as fun, and it was not received very well. I'll just leave it at that without having to rehash.
Nope.
Because we talked about bringing stickers in when we traveled over, and security's on the watch for that. They I won't say who or what, but we were looking to place a sticker, and unfortunately, there was not the opportunity, just from the fact of there was a lot of eyes on anybody that was wearing silver and black on that day.
Yeah, I mean, I think some of that comes down to the fact that Isotopes Park security is what it is. That is not New Mexico United's security. So, yeah, Isotopes Park is.
You say that, and we'll talk about it at the end. But there was some news this week about possible future stadium.
There was. I cannot wait to get into that. I debated doing a show at the end of last week when that came out, but. We will certainly get into that, but yeah, I mean, it's the end of the season is here. We've got 2 weeks left. I mean, obviously, our clubs are in 2 vastly different positions. You mentioned it. New Mexico United has to win out, and even if we do, we still need help because right now the best we can do is 7th. And you look at the teams around us. Roots has a match in hand on us. El Paso has a match in hand. RGV has a match in hand, and if you're a New Mexico United supporter, like you even after this win against Lou City, as impressive as it was in that performance, you can't really feel good about these next 2 matches coming up because really for the past, almost half season, we've had the worst back end of the schedule that anyone could face this year. And And you guys, meanwhile, again, while your last two matches aren't necessarily easy by any means on paper, you've got to feel a lot better about your chances at potentially jumping into one compared to where United is at, trying to even get back into the playoff discussion.
And I think for San Antonio FC, would they like to be number one? Yes, but Pittsburgh's already won, or for San Antonio, that they can't host the final unless Pittsburgh and Tampa aren't doing it. The top two seeds in the East. Sacramento should win the West. So I think for San Antonio FC, it's fine tuning and trying to get keep healthy. Avoid silly cards, not necessarily this week, but the following week, especially if you're on that yellow card watch for suspension, because those do carry over to the playoffs if you do pick up that 8th or 10th or whichever tier that you're on. So I think for that, but yeah, to me it's for San Antonio it's trying to get into that rhythm, because let's be honest, the playoffs, it's all about momentum and going in hot and staying hot. If you're struggling, because the matches are tight, it does for that here, it's all quality teams, whether you're playing at a home or away. I do know if the championship is in Sacramento, it'll be extremely tough, just like if the championship final is in San Antonio. It's a tough place to play. Phoenix is tough. San Diego would be tough. Orange County is a quality team. There's no easy team in the West, and I think that's why we kind of see the depth for that here. We got Orange County, Colorado Springs, which we haven't even talked about, is 6th for that here, and then you got New Mexico, RGV, Monterey Bay, Oakland, El Paso, all kind of in that for those last two spots. And to be honest with you, if El Paso had a 10-game unbeaten streak earlier in the year, you guys had a pretty decent. You guys had some pretty good success, and it was 2020, 2021. You guys came to San Antonio and advanced on I'm on the Somos Mas, so you advanced on a goal. Some of us would dispute handball, but record book says it's a goal by Mr. Weehan. But I think the only weak links, the lights, right? As far as out west, I think you can make a case for any of the other teams once you get into the tournament. You could see a path for them to get there, but yeah, for San Antonio, definitely, I'd rather be in our position than your position. I've been in your position, and it sucks because you're like, hey, we can win these next 2 games and still miss out, and because you don't control your destiny because of earlier season bad luck, injuries, bad play, whatever the whatever scenario you want to play.
Yeah, unfortunately for United, I don't think we've had a season where we've comfortably been in the playoffs. It's seemingly come down to the last week or two every single season that we've made it. So, this is no different than the others. I mean, obviously, depending on results this weekend, I mean, really even tomorrow night, we could see a massive hit to our playoff hopes. And when you look at the matches tomorrow, you've got El Paso playing tomorrow night against San Diego Loyal, and Orange County and Oakland. So, I mean, obviously, this for tomorrow night, we're Orange County and Loyal fans. And even to that extent, we're cheering for Hartford tomorrow night too, because RGV is playing tomorrow night as well. So three big matches that impact United's season. You talked about earlier, Oakland, depending on what they do. If Oakland wins, I mean, we're really behind the 8 ball.
Yeah,
it's tough. It's a tough spot to be in, and I mean, fortunately, Oakland and El Paso get that match in hand out of the way here midweek, and RGV as well. But we had opportunities throughout the season. We had 2 to 3 matches in hand for weeks, and we didn't do anything with it.
So here's the question for you, because I think the odds of New Mexico making the playoffs are slim, and that's probably being nice. I felt, and I've expressed this to you guys the last couple of years. I would have liked to have seen more change with New Mexico. Do you think this is the year that you actually see more change with it? And I'm not saying replacing the coach again, for that here, but um, obviously the current system hasn't had success, and I think we would agree because you guys didn't make the playoffs last year, right? You just missed out. If memories serves me, or did you guys make the playoffs last year?
We did make it last year. We
But
did.
you
We
lost
went
in the
out.
first round. Oh, did you play us in the first round?
Sacramento, I want to say.
Okay.
Let me double check that here real quick. But yeah, to answer your question first, like, yes, this is more than likely going to be. Yeah, we lost to Sacramento 2-0.
Oh yeah, you guys finished 5th.
Yeah.
So you guys were pretty comfortable. Well, you weren't comfortable, but you guys were solid.
Yeah, it still came down to like the last 2 weekends, if I remember correctly. Yeah. But no, so no, I don't think I don't think we see a coaching change here in the offseason. I know some people have speculated, but no, you don't give someone like Coach Quill half a season,
right,
and move on, because you look at the roster that he inherited, which is, and we've referred to it as Troy 1.5. Because that's really all Zach was. I love Zach as a person. I think he's a great person. I like Troy as a person. And I think Troy's done pretty okay. Up in the MLS level. So, Zach's with him now, which we all knew was going to happen. And so, but you look at the system that they wanted to play compared to what Coach Quill wants to play. You see, it's vastly different, and you see we've seen a lot more combinations and formations of personnel in just half a season under Coach Quill than we did in 5 years of Troy 1.0 and 1.5. So,
and I think what bothered me, and to me, it's something that I think is kind of surprising, because I think in the off season, if you would have told me that Santi Moore, Greg Hurst, and who was the other? Those two, and the other one was Weehan that came back, but he came back prior.
Yeah,
but they really haven't had the success that you thought they would have had. And to me, it's never, if a player is returning, it's odds are 75% of the time it doesn't go as well as the first time. And to me, that's where, with New Mexico United, it always seems like they're trying to bring back the band together. And it just doesn't seem to work. And that's why, as a San Antonio fan, hey, I hope you guys kind of struggle. But as kind of a, semi guest host on here every once in a while, for New Mexico, you hope to where you bring in some new blood, some younger blood, some faster, for some speed, for that, especially on the small pitch that you guys have with the baseball pitch. Having that speed is key for you guys, because there's not a lot of space, like RGV where for that here. But it'll be interesting to see what the offseason brings, but we're not to the offseason yet. So for you, where do you see New Mexico finishing?
If you'd asked me that a couple weeks ago, I'd have held out. I think I even said, I was holding out hope to see what would happen, but I was waiting to see would Bees come back, because Bees is obviously a guy who, when he's healthy, can make a contribution. But I think we miss, and I've tried to be very realistic about my expectations and hopes this year. Coaching change, things look good under Quill. And I still think things look good under him. We've seen some positive change. We've seen some positive signings and a shift away from, prior systems. But I think we miss. I honestly think best case scenario, we get 3 more points this season. And I think honestly,
I don't think you get any personally, but
I could easily see that.
because I think Memphis is still trying to get that final home playoff spot, and same with Phoenix here. They have more to play. I think the form that they're in is better, especially for this upcoming one where it's away. To Phoenix, which is a tough place to play. Although New Mexico typically does fairly well, or better than average than most teams for that here. But for me, like I said here, I think New Mexico finished around 10th, 11th. Depending on the RGV Monterey Bay results. But yeah, with the two matches of being Phoenix and Memphis, both right now number 4 seeds in the playoffs. One's at home, the last match for that here. So, I know you guys had 11,000 and change, at the lab for the last one here. It's a Friday night match, and I'm sure you guys will have something special planned, for that match. But Memphis plays on a baseball field, so they'll be accustomed to it. So, to me, I hate to say it, but I don't see New Mexico improving their position at all.
Yeah, I really think 10 is where we finish, because even if we do pick up 3 more points, I think RGV, is kind of my dark horse. I mentioned it to you earlier. I think RGV is one of those teams you never know what they're going to do. You never know how they're going to play. And I know the back end of their schedule is not necessarily favorable for them. Hartford, Sac, and Loudon. So, I think there's a possibility that they pick up, 6.
Well,
so,
I think they should get the win against Hartford, just because Hartford is poor. Sorry, AJ, and I know you love Matt Shelton, who has a YouTube channel, and he's like, "How's Matt Shelton doing?" I think they get the win there. RGV Sacramento, their last 2 matches are at home. Loudon, you got to figure is a win. I like Loudon, and if you guys haven't been paying attention, watch out for Loudon next year. I think they're going to see kind of a Tulsa type turnaround. As far as
they've done some very good things out there.
Fan engagement, through there, because their new ownership took over a week or 2 before the season started. Today they announced, that they're not going to charge for parking, and I think you're going to see a lot more investment into Loudon United. So watch out for them next year. But to me, that Sacramento RGV match for, as a San Antonio FC fan, that's a tough place where I could see RGV getting a draw, because Sacramento isn't blowing people out, out, and especially on the road, and especially down where where HEB Park, where dreams go to die. That is a tough place. The only reason why I kind of give a little bit of hesitancy to it is because RGV has to travel to Hartford on Wednesday. They do play on Saturday night, so they've got a quick trip. And just as a reminder, this is a makeup for a weather game that got delayed a few weeks ago in Hartford. So because of that is why they're having to travel back to the East Coast to come back down. So to me, that probably gives a little bit of edge to Sacramento. But yeah, I think 6 points at minimum is what you can expect from RGV for that year.
Yeah, like I said, for me, they're kind of the dark horse. Whether or not they sneak into the playoffs, I don't know, but it'll be close, because you see RGV picking up 6, that puts them on 45. Depending on other results, but I think United is stuck. I think we really are. 10th, 11th is going to be where we're at, and then you go into the offseason going, okay, what has to change? And obviously, I think we see a lot more roster turnover this year. You mentioned Santi Moar, guy, we brought him back, to a fair amount of fanfare, but for those of us in the media, we kind of questioned, okay, how is he going to perform? How is he going to do? And he has not contributed anywhere near the level that a lot of people thought he would.
Well, he struggled in Phoenix too.
He did.
Well, let's be fair. He cooled off in Phoenix, and that's why they probably had no issues really kind of letting him go. I will say here, just, and I'm sure you know this here, a lot of deals for next year may not be finalized, but are probably already in the works for that year. So that's one thing that I've kind of learned through the grapevine and sources through here is a lot of the player movements that you're going to be seeing during the off season. A lot of it's done this time of year, September, October, that way players and families can through there. Now, of course, team options and stuff like that still has to be worked out. So, but for New Mexico United, to me, there's a lot to be able be able to look forward to. For me, I'm interested to kind of see what happens with Zico Bailey, with Nicky Hernandez, obviously 2 former San Antonio FC players, but at least from the outside, it seems like they've adapted to New Mexico very well. For me personally, they're great community guys, and like I said, I would like to see them, especially Zico, be really given a shot at playing full time and starting. Because I hate to say it, as a San Antonio fan, he got yes, he came in on a 25-day contract, got signed to a season long, and then negotiated, but. I would have liked to have seen what he would have done as a starter at times with San Antonio, and hopefully in New Mexico he gets that opportunity.
Yeah, he's been phenomenal since he's come in. Zico's been a lot of fun to watch. You've seen him play both that right back and also play out of the midfield.
Up top.
And yeah, he's been up top a little bit as well. So, he's been a lot of fun to watch. Nicky's been phenomenal. Obviously, I want to see both those guys come back for next season. I like Kyle Colonna. I would love to see Garvanyan getting more opportunity. He's been hurt the last couple of weeks. I'd love to see him get more play. Really good young guy. And Astorga, too, a guy that we just assigned. We were talking to Coach about him Saturday night. He was a member of the U23s. Coach asked him to stay around and train with the first team, without a contract. He stayed, he trained, and he earned himself a contract. And he's been really good since we brought him up to the first team. And so I think we'll see him here these last 2 matches as well, just in the off chance we do make the playoffs. That way you've got him on that postseason roster. But you look at the forwards. Obviously, we'll have Nava back next year. I think Isaac Zuleta is a guy that I think could be interesting. We haven't seen him nearly enough. He's been injured also. Jacobo Reyes has been a little underwhelming, but he has history with Coach. So, I really, there's a lot of guys that could be out the door here at the end of the season. I think Santi's gone. I think Greg is gone. Honestly, I think all of our forwards are gone. I mean, Alex Wagner, obviously, he's up at University of Michigan doing really well up there. So glad to see that. Our academy is producing talent. So I think we see a lot of forwards come in here in the off season. So I would expect a lot of change. Obviously, we'll have our wish lists here in a couple of weeks, and we'll get more into that. But I think we see a lot of change this year. And, with Quill getting a full season under his belt next year, which is the expectation, because I don't see Pete and the ownership giving Coach, a year and a half, or, less than a full season, I should say, unless
they're looking to go a completely different direction where they're just going to rip the Band-Aid off. But yeah, I agree with you. I don't think the coach is going anywhere.
Yeah. I mean, unless we somehow start like 0-12 or some nonsense, like.
Well, not even that. Because I just think that if they just want to wipe the slate clean and just go from there, But I don't see it happening. But and especially with Peter, I don't have the interaction that you do, but he seems like somebody that's very community oriented, that's always looking out for the long term, and obviously he doesn't put Eric in there without thinking that he could possibly be the guy. And to be honest with you, the results he's got good enough results to get, in my opinion, to be able to stay on. But to me, it kind of goes into was this a make or break year for the playoffs to, because the goal was to take that next step.
Mhm.
And you could argue that, New Mexico took a step back. And I think this team is going to be building for what 2025
Mhm.
is probably on the next story that we're going to get to, is really what these next two seasons is going to be, is to be building for when you guys do get that new stadium, to where you are, a San Antonio, Louisville type, where you've got that depth, where you've got that quality, where you can step in and really put a claim into being one of the elite teams in the West, well, not even just the West, but USL Championship.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. You can definitely look at it as a step back, but no one expected the results that we got under Zach, and then to have Coach Quill come in and do what he did, and even with just a few signings that he had,
Correct.
you can see a difference in this club. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be the focus here in the off season, and next year is going to be building for that future. And you talk about that. You talk about the big news. I mean, on Friday it came out that the city, Thursday or Friday, I think it was Thursday. Thursday, the city held a press conference. Mayor Tim Keller came out and said that the city intended to lease 7 acres of land to New Mexico United for a stadium up at Balloon Fiesta Park, with some caveats in that lease, such as New Mexico United had to invest a minimum of $30 million of private funding. They could not host matches during Balloon Fiesta. They could not interfere with any balloonists. And on top of rent, New Mexico United will be paying a portion of the parking fees to the city, among some other things, and one of which we found out Saturday night after the match. Once the lease is paid in full, New Mexico United will be donating the stadium to the city.
Nice.
Yeah, so it will be a fully publicly owned stadium once that is paid off. That was directly from Peter Trevisani in the post-match on Saturday evening. But yeah, I mean, massive news. It was supposed to go to the city council last night. I went looking through the agenda for the meeting. It was not on there, so I don't know what happened. But yeah, I mean, it's been a long time coming with all of the negativity surrounding the public bond vote in 2021, and everything that's been going on. Will we get a stadium? Won't we get a stadium? Where is it going to go? And we've heard Lagoon Siesta Park rumored for quite a while now, and some of the early maps that we saw of potential locations is where the stadium's going to be.
So there's an article on Yahoo Sports. I'm assuming it's from Ken Sickinger from the Albuquerque Journal. He has some more key points in there. The $30 million funding, annual rent payments to the city beginning at $35,000 a year last year, which to me sounds pretty reasonable. But it says the agreement was to be introduced at the Albuquerque City Council on Monday night and is scheduled for a council hearing and vote on October 16th. Okay. So that will be, according to Ken Stickinger from Albuquerque Journal and Yahoo Sports, there is a update saying that the council meeting and vote would be on October 16th. And as I've learned from Orange County and Austin FC, typically if it's a council meeting, if they're open to the public, New Mexico fans can go and express support for it here to help encourage your local city council to make the right decision. And I'm not saying that they won't make the right decision, but obviously showing support for your club may sway a vote.
Yeah, that's one of the great things about the New Mexico, about the Albuquerque City Council meetings, that you can they are done virtually, so you can virtually join and do it that way. I don't know that they do have public comment. I don't know if they actually have public comment in person currently, but they do that through Zoom, so you can hop online and make your voice heard that way. But yeah, no, it sounds really promising, and the location that's been picked is one that is not currently used by any portion of Balloon Fiesta. If there is a map, I'm trying to get a hold of it from the club that was shown. It's there, so the northeast side of Balloon Fiesta Park. there's a electrical substation there, and a bunch of
Mm-hmm.
power lines. So the balloons can't fly there anyway. So it's really not going to take away from Balloon Fiesta Park itself. There's already ingress and egress points. The city is going to invest in infrastructure in the area. The city is not putting any public funding towards the stadium construction itself. It's only going towards infrastructure. So there's no city bond. There's nothing like that. The club is fully in. Now, I'm sure there might probably be some state money at some point, because the state does have weed and gas money now. So there might be something coming from the state, but there will be no Albuquerque, city funding going towards that. And I mean, infrastructure is always on there. So, and I can tell you from discussions that I've had, they've already done some of the testing, such as light and sound, noise, and things are going really, really well. The closest residential areas are a couple miles away. Pretty much all that's in that area is Balloon Fiesta Park, the Pueblo of Santa Ana, and then you've got businesses, including my former workplace, as well as others.
So here's a question for you. I don't think you've seen this article. But he was asked on natural gas versus artificial turf.
I asked that.
Oh, did you?
I asked that Saturday night. Yeah.
So you already know the answer. But he says, my heart says grass, my wallet says turf. Everyone likes playing on grass, but there's a balance to consider, because we want to have women's game and high school games, and you can't play on grass every day. And also at the expense of watering, and of course they're going to try to make this decision as late as possible.
Yeah.
I'm of the believer, I know everybody says, hey, it's going to be grass. I'm of the believer that I think at some point, all the fields are going to be turf, especially at this level, just because he's paying $35,000 in rent right now, to be able to kind of help recoup, some of those expenses. Having events, like high school games. I know you guys are going to have a women's women's team there, which will play during the winter. So playing on grass is, that's not going to be growing. I don't see any way that they go other than turf. Now you can have like the turf, like Colorado Springs. It'd be interesting if they have, and he talks about wallet, but it would be interesting if he has, like over in England and other places where they have the heated turf, how much that would be for, like, especially, because it gets cold in New Mexico, right? I know it's not like Raton and stuff like that, but I believe you guys get snow every once in a while, kind of like Dallas, Fort Worth, or maybe even a little bit more.
Yeah, so the metro area itself doesn't necessarily get a ton of snow. You really have to kind of go up, more north, like the Santa Fe, or east, like the East Mountains areas. But we do get snow occasionally here in town, but it's nothing like it is outside of town. But yeah, no, I asked that question Saturday night. That was me. That was the answer that Pete gave. I initially asked it as part of another question, because one of the things that Pete has long wanted with the stadium is to build retail shops around the stadium. That's something that he had the original idea for. So I asked him, said, you talk about activating the area, bringing in revenue and things like that. Is this still part of the plan? And I said, and then, and obviously the question, everyone's so grass or turf. And our good friend David Weesey-Carl tried to move on from that one. And he had, and he goes, anybody have any questions? I said, yeah, grass or turf, because Pete didn't answer it initially. He goes, and David, I was trying to move on from that. I said, no, we're not, we're not getting off of that one, so, but I get it. And Pete's vision for this stadium is that it will be open to the public. He wants it to be open every day of the year. He says there's no reason that a stadium shouldn't be open. If people come in and walk around, or come in and have community games, or have high school games, or other events at the stadium, because they do want it to be open. They want to be part of the community. They want to be a community asset. And so the concern about grass, I get it. I mean, if you're going to have that many events, you can't.
It can't be grass. It can't be.
Yeah, you just can't. Now, obviously, we know the current concerns about turf. Does it contribute to more injuries than grass? It's obviously much easier to maintain. Now, why we can't do what Real Madrid did, I don't know, other than the fact that it probably costs a few $100 million, but with a retractable field. But it's from a fan standpoint, I would love to see grass. From the media side, from the logistical side, I get it. I get the desire to forego grass and put in turf. I don't think heated turf is going to be on the books, but we'll see.
I don't think it is either, but I'm like, hey, possible that would be a cool addition. And the reason why I bring it up is because of the women's game, because we want to make sure that they have a proper, even if it's turf. And I know, Colorado Springs has the coconut style turf, which is top of the line, and I'm pretty sure Peter's going to get something of equivalent, if not better, quality for that here, where it's going to be a top line. It's going to be great turf. The issue is that in the winter, it's especially at slick and stuff like that. If you can, through the hair now, of course, it's not my my pocketbook unless I win the was it Mega Millions or Powerball, whatever. That's at some godly amount that hey, I could become a USL owner at that point. For that, then Peter, we can talk about a stadium for that here, but it'll be interesting on the size. I think it's got to be what 10 to 15. You figure?
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that they did say in the talk with Pete on Saturday night was that they haven't decided. They haven't made a final decision on size of the stadium. Now, I think you have to go on the larger side. My guess is somewhere 13 to 15. A lot of that plays into the fact that, Balloon Fiesta can handle that type of ingress. They see tens of thousands of people daily during Balloon Fiesta. So it's entirely possible to house that. I don't see it. Honestly, I don't see it going below 12, 11 at the lowest end, but I really think it's somewhere around 13 to 14 more than likely. I'd like to see 15 because if we've proven that we can get 15, so. But I mean, it'll be really interesting to see, what the design's going to be. Like they're really going to start digging into that. I know that we've talked about, they'd already start doing, some site testing and things like that to kind of prepare for it. And so it's something that's been in the works for a long time. But I'm glad that the announcement's finally here. I don't think the city council will vote this one down. I mean, again, it's not anywhere that anyone has ever complained about. So, it was an exciting day to hear that.
My only complaint is the, Balloon Fiesta looks to be the last 2 weeks ish of the season. Mm-hmm. Typically, what happens if it's a playoff weekend?
So if the schedule changes with USL Championship to where, that playoff does get bumped up and earlier into October, it'll be interesting to see what happens. I mean, so Saturday night, Pete did not rule out the possibility of somewhere down the line, maybe doing like a midday match out there. He talked about the idea of people coming out, watching an Ascension, staying for a soccer game, and then, seeing a Glow at night. Now, obviously, there's going to be a lot of conversation that has to be had between Balloon Fiesta and, the club. And the club is more than willing to do anything.
Whatever, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, Pete, he flat out said, we're open. We're open for the discussion. We would love to do something like that at some point in the future. But it's going to come down to the board of Balloon Fiesta, basically. And, I'm probably the city approval as well. But,
we got to see how it is. You got to see how it is. Let's, for the hair. But to me, that was the only kind of red flaggish thing that kind of popped up was you're going to be playing your last 2 matches of the season on the road.
Mhm.
which if, let's say you guys were 6 points further than what you are now, that makes it tough if you're having to play on the road as opposed to playing at home, and if you need points to be able to make the playoffs. So that was the only kind of yellowish flags. But no, I'm excited as somebody that's been to New Mexico back-to-back years. For that here, we won't talk about how San Antonio's done in those games because I don't want to disappoint you guys. But for that here, but no, that's right here. So I know we're a little bit over an hour here, and I know you guys like to keep it an hour. For you, at 13, what were you doing?
At 13, what was I doing? Oh gosh. Let's see, 13. That would have been 8th grade, right? 8th grade. Playing Magic the Gathering. That's what I was doing at 13. I was doing that, Boy Scouts, and baseball and basketball.
So you weren't appearing in a historical debut for Sacramento Republic, was it Devine Kimbrough, who is also on the playing for the Mexican national youth teams as well. Big discussion. 13 too young?
See, I wanted to ask you this question myself, and I didn't mention it to you earlier, but I did tweet about this from the ESPN radio account. Yeah, I mean, obviously the kid they see something in him to think he's talented enough to.
Well, he's got the
play
talent.
at this level. He's got the talent.
He's mature for 13. Mm-hmm. He has more facial hair than I do. So.
I saw this and my initial thought was, okay, this is either Freddie Adu 2.0 or something positive is going to come out of this. But at 13, I don't think you're physically and mentally ready to play with a bunch of adults. And so, I mean, while the kid is talented, I just don't see it being a good physical atmosphere for him, because worst case scenario, this kid gets hurt and then we never see him again. And you don't want to do that. Now, is he better than the kid? He's clearly better than the kids his age. He's probably better than a lot of high school kids. But why risk this instead of putting him into your academy or let him play with your U23s? And even then, I think that's a stretch. But to put him in the first team, I think it's too soon.
Here's where I'm going to push back on you.
Okay.
And I'm pushing back on most people on this. And I'm putting a lot of faith in Sacramento as an organization. They've got a hell of a leader, Rodrigo Lopez, who was an elite youth player in Mexico, he's a Mexican American. I don't know if he grew up in Mexico or through here. He's played in both countries. He's playing controlled minutes. So it's not like they're throwing him out starting minutes. He got 5 minutes, I think it was, against the Lights in a 2-0 victory. He was fouled. But let me ask you this question here, and I know you guys have soccer in Albuquerque, here in Texas. When you go out Sunday afternoon, weekend soccer games, you can see talented kids. I don't know their age. Obviously, I'm not IDing them, but you can see kids playing with adults, and that's why, to me, I don't necessarily have a problem with that as long as it's in a controlled environment where they're, it's mainly at home. It's in situations that aren't pressure built along those lines. Because to me, I don't see anything bad about rewarding him for the efforts and stuff. Because, an organization like Sacramento, which I think we both would agree is kind of like Louisville, Tampa, one of those elites. They're here. Hell, they were supposed to have gone to MLS, until an owner backed out for that here. So they're a reputable thing. They've got a good academy. He's got the talent for that here. So I have no problem doing that. Now, where I think that they have to be careful, and we learned this from Freddie Adu, is the media aspect of blowing him up too much. And that's where we'll be kind of be interesting to see, when he gets 14, 15, or, 15, 16, because we saw that with Jose Gallegos, that was 16 when he first came onto the scene here in San Antonio. We're like, dude, he's young. But it was in control situations. And, I think it's a good story. Obviously, if you look at his body maturity, he's very mature. The only thing I dislike about it is it takes away his ability if he wanted to play college soccer. And I know playing college soccer or any sport, right? Well, no, actually, I think it's just tied to soccer. If he wanted to go play college soccer, it takes away that opportunity. But obviously, with his skills, as soon as he reaches 18, most likely he's going abroad, over to Europe or wherever he's going for that here. But to me, like I said here, I think in controlled situations with the leadership that they have both on the pitch and off the pitch in Sacramento, that I think it is a good environment for him now. That's putting a lot of pressure on Sacramento to make sure they're doing right by the kid and his family.
My question, and I was looking for it, is I don't know if he signed a straight professional contract or was it an academy contract? Because if it was an academy contract, then he can still go collegiate. But
Correct.
if it's a straight professional contract, then I don't believe he can. So I just don't know. I mean, and you mentioned the media coverage. Obviously, a big deal was made of this over the weekend. And I think being thrust into that spotlight at such a young age, does add pressure to it. It doesn't allow him to continue. It could hamper his development rather than keeping him, a little bit more behind the scenes. But I don't know. It's going to be really interesting to watch this kid over the next couple of years, see what happens. Does he garner interest from overseas?
It says here, according to, this is what KCRA, Daniel Mock says here. Let me get back over there. Had been a member of Sac Republic's Youth Academy, signed a contract with a club that makes him eligible. Federation will continue his development of the club's academy. So yeah, it doesn't really say if it is academy contract, but professional. Let me go to Sac Republic site, because that's a good question on if it's just an academy contract, then he still keeps all of his options open.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I could not find that in any of the articles I read about him, but and I mean, you talk about, while we're trying to look this up, you talked about, seeing kids play on the weekends, and I talked about, a lot. I referee, youth soccer and adult league soccer, and I saw a kid 3 weeks ago, U13 team. He was a goalkeeper, absolutely phenomenal goalkeeper. Great reflexes. Obviously more physically mature than other kids that were on the pitch. But I mean, this is a kid I was tempted to call up, David Estrada and be like, hey, come look at this kid, because he showed, like, just watching him, he was head and shoulders above every other keeper I ref that weekend. Like it was just that level, that big of a difference in between his skill level and, some of the other, and every other goalkeeper I saw that weekend. So, I mean, that's not to say that these kids can't train at a high level. They can't, train with older people. I mean, you look at even the United Academy. Those guys train with the first team players because they have been identified as some of the best in the state. But you're still looking at 16, 17, 18-year-olds and not 13. So I don't know. Like, I want the best for this kid. I hope that he is able to continue to develop. I hope Sacramento is able to develop him into a top tier talent, because they've obviously identified him as someone that is capable of playing at this level of play. So, but you don't want to see him hampered either. So it's, finding that balance of how do you develop him and, keep him out of the media spotlight to where, again, you don't have that Freddie Adu 2.0,
No, on the Sacramento site says his first professional contract through here So it's not an academy, because usually they'll say academy contract.
Yeah.
But yeah, through the SAC website here, SAC Republic, they're saying that it is a professional contract here.
Mm-hmm. So I mean, yeah. So there goes that. More than likely, there goes that collegiate. Yeah.
So yeah, he's the sixth Republic FC to sign a professional contract. So it's not an academy contract.
Yeah.
So, but good for him. Like I said here, wish him nothing but success, except against New Mexico United and San Antonio, since I'm on the New Mexico podcast, but especially against San Antonio for me. Yeah, obviously San Antonio or New Mexico for you. But it'll be an interesting story to kind of see how this plays out along those lines here, for him.
Yeah, it certainly will. But yeah, I mean, 2 weeks to go left in the season. I mean, we're there, and obviously we'll sit down and we'll talk some more. We'll talk playoff soccer here before too long. Oh, real quick before we do, I do have one more question for you. Did Inter Miami handle Messi correctly?
Yes.
Yeah,
I think they did.
Okay. I was curious because, you bring them in, they go on the run that they did, through cut play. And then, turns out he's got a hamstring injury, done for the year, so I was just curious, what your thoughts on that were. I mean, obviously Messi coming over, the biggest name, in my opinion, to ever come to MLS.
Yeah. To me, I have to watch my words closely here. My issue is more with MLS, and I guess you could kind of say maybe Inter Miami, on disclosing that injury long enough, because what Chicago sold out, what Soldier
Atlanta
Field
sold
or
out,
whatever.
yeah.
Atlanta, I think you could have got away with that because they probably didn't know the extent of that time. It was on turf, which he always said, but when he came over, he wasn't fond on playing on turf. So I could kind of see that, but for Miami, outside of them jacking up prices next year, which I hate to say this, if they're able to pull it off, you're going to see this. It's going to impact soccer top to bottom for that here. And especially I didn't bring this up here, with you guys, but when you guys get your new stadium, it'll be interesting the prices that we see for the stadium, depending on how much seats that come into play. But that'll be discussed way down the road. But yeah, the sticker price for season tickets, if the sticker price to see one-off games, Dallas has talked about, hey, your season ticket package doesn't include the Inter Miami matches, so I have more of an issue on that kind of aspect of it, and I understand it from a business sense, but geez, through here, Miami's back in the playoff picture, which is something that you couldn't say beforehand. And more importantly, he's brought in more help than just him. So I think Miami could still possibly make it into the playoffs. Are they going to win it? No. But I think I think for MLS, they gave the taste, and they need to make sure he's healthy. He didn't get hurt, is from my understanding, in MLS. It was hurt, during Argentina national team duties, along those lines here. So I think that's a huge positive for MLS that, the detractors can't say, because of the congested schedule in MLS, this is why, he was hurt on a, turf or something along those lines. But yeah, next year, watch out, for that here. And it'll be interesting. I won't lie, Austin, Houston, Dallas. If I get the opportunity and if the pocketbooks get the ability, I wouldn't mind going and trying to see the GOAT.
I wouldn't either. I mean, we've already talked about the possibility of, Jacob, Earl, and myself making it to potentially Atlanta for a World Cup in 2026. So I get it. You want to see the best in the world, like you're gonna spend the money to do so.
You guys could just go up 25 to Denver, and
that is
tickets would be, just to see. And this is just messy. Obviously going to the World Cup, you want to go see, but to me, especially a place like Denver, in which is, the Rapids are kind of my semi MLS team because I grew up in Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be awesome to see a sellout there, but yeah, it'll be interesting for them.
Yeah, definitely. The other question it brings up is, I know there's a lot of discussion about, does about how Inter Miami pulled all of this off. Does this help facilitate a change in USL not USL? Does this help facilitate a change in MLS roster rules going forward?
It has to. It has to. It does, and it's MLS. I have a love-hate relationship with MLS just because of what happened with Austin and San Antonio. Mm-hmm. But MLS needs to loosen the financial restrictions that they put on clubs. And take Atlanta United as an example. They're selling out, at times. The stadium that was it Mercedes-Benz Stadium, I think is what it's called.
Yep.
70-some thousand, on some games. I think the average is 20,000-30,000, I think is what they average for there. But they're typically there. Obviously, Arthur Blank doesn't have an issue with paying for things as the Home Depot owner for there. And I don't know if you bought wood recently, but it's not cheap. Finding my inner Earl here, it's expensive. Going to Home Depot or Lowe's, it has to. They've got, in order for MLS to take that next step, they have to. It's just like for USL. In order for USL to take that next step, USL has to try to get ProRel. It has to. That's how you can kind of filter out. It's how you can differentiate. If not, I think you and I have kind of talked off record on this here, but if not, I think everything will fall in under an MLS structure after the World Cup. But that's why I think for USL they have to try. Whether it's successful or not, that's a whole separate discussion. But they've got to try to do something different.
Yep, they sure do. So Atlanta United for 2023 is averaging 47.8.
Yeah, so almost 50,000.
Yeah.
And tickets aren't cheap either. The tickets aren't cheap, from my understanding. And then you talking about all the parking, beverages there are $15 for a beer most likely.
I think it depends. So I think there is one series of concessions that's like it's like super cheap, but then you do have the higher end, stuff. But
yeah, it's like I took the four of us to one game to Austin FC and Dallas. So I took Monica and an AJ. By the time we got tickets and decent seats, with buying them a soda, buying them, popcorn or nachos, whatever they got, it was almost the price of our season. I have 3 season tickets where I'm at. It was almost at that same price. And that's just one game. And to me, that's one of those things when people talk about going to MLS. It would be awesome to go MLS until you look at the pocketbook and see the prices of tickets for MLS. And I think you'll find that a lot of us fans, that, we don't struggle, but, we're not, living the high life either. We're middle America, we pay our bills, we put money away for savings, and we go on vacations and treat the kids probably nicer than what we should. But, it's, we're in a good position, but dude, MLS tickets, it's a whole different ball game.
And that's why I don't go to national team games.
I don't even. Well, that's a whole different discussion because we get 10, 12,000 when if you would reduce them to a reasonable amount, you could sell out the stadiums, but they don't do that. But
no. Yeah, that's a whole other thing, and we can talk about that another time. But
That's off season.
that is definitely off-season discussion. Can't wait to have that one. But Harry, thank you so much for being here.
One final topic
Gotcha.
for you here. Edge, or was it Adam, whatever?
Adam Copeland, yeah.
Made his entrance into AEW going against Christian. I thought that was kind of interesting for that. I saw the previews of that here. So
I saw that. I saw the clip of his intro. I saw
on YouTube. Yeah.
I saw his press conference afterwards. He was asked specifically because I know a couple TikTokers made a big deal of him having his entrance music, and it's like, well, he explained it. Alter. He's friends with the lead singer of Alter Bridge, the band that does his theme song. So he's like, yeah, it's I was gonna have it no matter what. So,
yep.
Interesting feud, him and Christian.
I did find it odd as well. If you watch his little video, it has rated R in there as well. He doesn't say it, but it does have some of the things there where piggyback. But I do think the relationship between AEW and WWE has gotten better. Obviously, they're rivals, but it has gotten better. Where hopefully for wrestling fans and wrestlers, more importantly, if they do go back and forth, because what's best for business for them, that life is a little bit easier for that here. And I think you're going to start seeing talent bounce back and forth just because storylines, and there's so much talent out there that it's impossible to watch.
Yeah, it really is. And then when you have guys that come back, John Cena obviously made his return. The Rock's been back on WWE programming recently, so it's. And then obviously WWE is going to milk Judgment Day, Bloodline, all that stuff for as much as they possibly can. But yeah, it's really interesting to see guys going back and forth. Like you never would have seen that back in the 90s. It was a huge deal back in the 90s and early 2000s, when a superstar made that switch. So, maybe they're learning from each other, like give guys opportunities to go in and main event somewhere else, on the other promotion when they don't have a storyline.
Well, I think most people would agree WWE's got better because there's competition that's pushed them, because they got to where it was laziness. We'll just call it what it is. It was laziness. And, part of it is Vince wouldn't adapt to changing times for that year. And, he is no longer there. I think for the most part, maybe in name only, but from my understanding with the merger, his role is very minimal. Now we'll see if that stays, but no, wanted to get a little wrestling in there because I did think Edge going over to there was, as a wrestling fan, kind of interesting. And I thought it was interesting that he's going against Christian as opposed to coming over, because I would have expected that they would have teamed them together, kind of like the Hardy Boys. Yeah. But I do like that they flipped it and went kind of the opposite direction on that.
Yeah, it'll definitely be interesting to see what happens with that. Obviously, Edge, one of the premier names in wrestling over the past 2 decades. Yep. So it'd be good to see him get over there. I think this will be his first opportunity to work with Sting as well. I could be wrong. I don't think he's worked with Sting before. So
at least not since he's made it. Yeah, because Sting's never. Well, he's had a couple of appearances in WWE, but nothing really in a major role like he has with AEW. But
yeah,
it'll be interesting. But it is getting late. We're for that here, so I have to be up early. Go Broncos! Although we gave up 70, and then we made Fields look like a competent quarterback, so it might be a long year for my Broncos.
Yeah, I saw the win the other day, and I put out a tweet, asked how Broncos country was doing. Finally, got the first win of the season, but I don't know what's going on up there. I really don't know. But
I can tell you, Vance Jackson.
Okay,
he is the defensive coordinator. He shouldn't be the defensive coordinator, but as I had one of my other Bronco fans say, "Hey, let's suck it for this year." We can make Russell Wilson, draft one of the elite quarterbacks in this upcoming draft, get a quarterback for the future. Russell can start next year, and then in 2025, it's much cheaper to cut him. So for the Broncos, they can have a year where it's a transition. So you can draft a young quarterback, let him sit, develop a little bit towards midseason and season, put in the young quarterback, and then go from there. But who's your team? Falcons or
Falcons? Yep.
So you guys need a quarterback.
Well, yeah. I mean, we've needed one since before Matt Ryan left. So
I heard, I don't think you'll like it, but I thought it was interesting listening to one of the morning shows nationally. Kirk Cousins to the Falcons. Would that be interesting?
I wouldn't hate it. I don't hate it. I mean, I think Cousins is highly underrated. It'll be interesting to see how he would do.
It would take a new contract and along those lines, but I thought that was an interesting point because that division is winnable. If we're honest.
It's very winnable.
And with Bijan Robinson, the running back, I think you guys still got some pretty good wide receivers. If you guys had a above average quarterback, I think you guys could make the playoffs. But I don't think anybody's getting by the Niners, and I hate to say it, the Cowboys look kind of decent, although I'm not a believer in Dak yet either. So
I've never been a believer in Dak. I still think Philly's the team to beat in the East, but
I think San Francisco. I
mean, I'm saying in the East, out of the West, I think it's obviously San Francisco.
But yeah.
In the East, I don't think it's Dallas. I think it's Philly. But yeah, I mean, the South is winnable. You look at the quarterbacks in the South. Baker Mayfield at Tampa. You've got whoever's Jameis Winston, I think it is, in New Orleans now since
because Carr got hurt.
Yeah, and then I don't even know who Carolina has at this point, but yeah, no, the South is very winnable.
Drafted. Who was the guy they drafted number 1? Bryce.
The
Alabama quarterback. Bryce Young.
Bryce Young. Yeah.
And
then, of course, they also have the Red Rocket over there too. So
but yeah, all the QBs are in the West, with the exception of Aaron Rodgers, who lasted 4th place.
Yep. But yeah, South is winnable. We'll see what happens. I think we've got this year and maybe next year as the Falcons' window of opportunity before the rest of the division, gets back on track. But I don't know. We'll see.
All right, check you later, my friend.
All right, Harry, thank you so much for being here. Folks, if you don't follow Harry, please go follow Harry. Reddit, Twitter, at Ram and Call. You can find him there. Also find SATX Soccer, Texas Ring of Fire. Harry, is there anywhere else that people can find you or the content that you put out?
That is enough. I'll typically do Protagonist Soccer kind of games of the week. I'll highlight usually 2 USL matches and UPSL here in San Antonio, Central Texas area. I try to pick a match since it's in season there to try to support local soccer for that here. And I think New Mexico's got a couple of teams actually in UPSL. If you've got kind of a hankling to go see a local team that's not New Mexico United, generally speaking, they're fun environments, and I know Ron Patel comes from that kind of background for that here. So much respect to Ron here. I got to meet him in person, but I was a little I forgot to, hey, can I get a picture? And that was my bad on that. But it was awesome to meet him in person, and like I said here, nothing but love for the New Mexico ownership and front offices. They've always been kind to me and my family when I made the trips over to there with Peter and Ron and stuff like that. And you guys as well. Back in the day, I saw Earl. The year before, I saw you and Jacob. But maybe one of these years we can get all 3 of us, or all 4 of us, I guess I should say.
Yeah, absolutely. And yeah, so you did mention UPSL. Obviously, New Mexico United Academy plays in UPSL. UDA Soccer is in there as well. So 2 New Mexico clubs there. Rumor has it there's a club coming to Santa Fe as well. Whether or not it's going to be
Ooh.
UPSL or not, I don't know. But rumor has it there's going to be a new club up in Santa Fe. So we'll see what happens with that. So, Harry, appreciate you as always. Always great conversation. Always love having you either in the chat or on the show. Can't wait to see what happens. We'll talk again here soon. Talk some playoff soccer, and hopefully both of our teams are in the playoffs. If not, we will certainly be. At least I will be anyway. I'll be rooting for San Antonio. They were my preseason favorites. So for everyone listening, for Jacob, for Earl, for Harry, we do appreciate each and every one of you. And until next time, Somos Unidos.